with us Jeannie Lipton, who is the Executive Director of Naniac Development Corporation and Naniac Special Services District. For a Q&A for a few minutes, just talk about the overview of economic development here in the borough. So.
Well, I mean, I guess the first question is, Naniac seems to be thriving. What are you doing right there that we should look at, and what are the challenges?
Well, I mean, I think in some ways we're thriving. We have opportunities like everyone else. And I think that our challenges or opportunities are in many ways exactly what you're talking about. Large spaces that remain empty, and what is going to go in them, and what impact is that going to have on the community, especially when you look at statistically the types of businesses that are opening, food uses to retail uses, which are very hard to find, real retail uses. That retail is challenged, although we're beginning to see some of that come back. So there are aspects of us that are Naniac that are really doing well. We've gotten a huge amount of local and state, and actually federal through the state and local funding for projects that have been in the works for a very long time. And they're coming to fruition now, which is, I think, great, because I think potentially, not having a crystal ball, hopefully the economy was beginning to do better, and we were seeing the return of some retail. Retail has come through an extremely challenging 15 years, beginning in 2001, and through the real development of online shopping and websites and stuff like that, into now the return of somewhat experiential shopping. So people are coming back and walking around districts and shopping again because they actually are remembering that it's fun to actually walk into a place and touch things and talk to human beings. It's still fun to click and have it show up tomorrow, and that's a big thing. But
what is your mix of, not businesses, but property owners? Is there a concentration of property owners, or is it it's one of the things we've always,
okay,
we have some that own multiple properties, but we have multiple property owners.
Yes, and that is a challenge. We have one property owner who owns more than 40. Now, if you look at the corridor, the central part of the corridor, there are probably all in between one block of side streets and the front corridor, maybe 175 potential storefronts total. So when you have someone who has 40, okay, 22% I think I remember writing down once, that is hard. That person better be a visionary. That person better be all in, because one person who owns that amount of property can change the yeah.
Is that Dan?
That is. Mm-hmm. But there are other people that own very large, not so many properties, but large running frontage. So we have a few industrials left that could have, 300 or 400 feet of frontage. And if they are not interested in being part of the community, that can be a huge issue as well. So you have to kind of look at all of it and say, how do you address both those issues, and how do you get buy-in from both? How do you make someone who might not care? And that's like the real challenge, isn't it?
And is your goal, not necessarily your overall, but is it to proactively say, this would be a great fit into our district? I'm going to reach out to this store or type of store, and try to connect them with the property owner, knowing that there's a vacancy or pending vacancy, or is it more to?
Okay, so we do a little bit of retail recruitment, a little bit. We had a part-time retail recruiter. It's someone who has worked with me in Naniac for 8 years. That's how long I've been there. Part of her job was retail recruitment. So she would go out and look for a few things, but mostly her job was to hold people's hands who knocked on our door and said, I think I want to have a business here. Can you help me jump through the hoops with the city? Can you tell me what it means that this facade is historic? That kind of stuff. And I worked on that as well, but that was part of her job description. That's Joan Denenberg. Yeah.
I thought she did the PR.
No, she does so many different things.
She's an employee.
No, she's a consultant. She's a consultant.
Yeah, I used to work for Manny Young, so that's how I found. Jane wasn't my boss, but.
No. So we did and still do that, although we got so much flack for our lack of success rate in retail recruitment that I stopped calling that. I say we don't do it anymore. It's out of the budget, we don't do it. We still do it, but I just can't handle people saying, show us results, because it's very, very difficult. And we can show results, and we have brought businesses, but it's very hard. The bigger part that we work on is retention, retail retention, because it's something that too many communities are not thinking about. Like, okay, we have people who are here, who have invested a lifetime, a half a lifetime, 2 years, they're already vested in the district. How do we find tools that make them want to stay and bring them in? And that is where we spend much more. I spend much more of my time hand-holding, teaching, helping, pointing in directions, doing that than I do with actually coming to Narberth and knocking on a door and saying, hey, we'd love to have you in that.
So when you, I guess you're not doing it that much proactive retail recruitment.
It
I
needs
guess
big
when you look
dollars.
at the
It needs
mi-
big dollars working on it every day to be successful.
When you look at the mix of stores and what it's there now, and what would be, it's a multi-pronged
That's
question.
all right. That's all right.
You know, and what will be there in the future? How do you come up with that opinion? And one of the things that we've talked about, if we do some type of retail recruitment or planning in this way, everybody's got a different vision. A coffee shop, Marlene wants a flag shop, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But
I have no idea.
it's positive. You know. Anyway, so because you're a patriot. So the question is, you know, do we go? This is one of the things Brandon mentioned when we talked to him last month. You know, you survey. Are you getting the knowledge base from your instinct, having done this for many years, or are you talking to the residents, the retailers? I mean, how do you come
If
up
he
with
has
a plan?
told you to, you know, he's told you to survey, or lack of another, you know, plan, it has to be done. It has to be done. It's where everything starts. And you have people who live here who are in walking distance, and then you have the next circle out, people who
Yep.
drive here, and then the next circle out, people who come here only for your festivals, and you just do larger and larger rings. You must know what they want. And we can all think, we can think in Manayunk, you know what we need is we need a flag shop. And we can sit around as a board, or as a retail group, or as a restaurant group, or whatever it is, and we can say, we're sure, Jane and Joan, go out and find us a flag shop, because that's what we think we need. It's nearly impossible to do that if we really don't need that flag shop, if the demand is not there. And how do you find out if the demand is there? Well, you can go to the larger demographics, like I was talking, who did I talk about it to you? I think I might have mentioned it, but you can just get the demographics either from any real estate agent who does commercial real estate and who's tied into the larger databases. We'll do you a favor and we'll spit that out, and you can pick and choose what you want to, you know, talk about for your borough. Or you can look at the census and say, are you growing? You probably know all of that, okay? So then the next question is, for the people who are actually here all the time, what do you want? What do you like about Narberth? What don't you like about Narberth? And you come up with a series of questions with a consultant who sits with you guys to find out what is it you really want to know, okay? Because the survey has to be done really well, or you'll only get the answers that you set up to get, okay? And it's really easy to have a survey give you, I mean, it's as easy to have a survey give you what you want it to give you as it is to have a strategic plan that I'm telling you exactly what you want it to get. I don't care who does your strategic plan, if you're writing them a check, and somehow they've gotten a message from you that what you really want is another movie theater, or what you want in the middle of downtown Narberth is a Trader Joe's, which you're not gonna get, okay? Then that's what they're gonna tell you in your strategic plan, and you're gonna end up saying to yourselves, well, we already knew that. So
did you survey your community?
We did. At our last strategic plan, the community was surveyed, and we asked the questions. We got the survey out to as many places we could. So we used the Manioc lists, we used restaurant lists, we used retailer lists, we used community lists.
List of email addresses.
Yes, every single one of them. We didn't ask a single person to give it to us. No, we didn't say, hey, we're gonna take your list and throw it into a big list, okay? We said, we are gonna rely on you to send it, okay? And I'm gonna give you a perfect example of how that's a great thing and how it's not, okay? Because you have to really look at who the survey is going to and get it to as many people as possible. And then, once the results start coming in, and you've asked that question, how did you get this survey? Because you really need to do it. We did a big survey, and overwhelmingly, the survey was tilted towards questions that seemed to really love Winnie's LaBus.
They did a great job.
They did. They pushed the survey, people love Winnie's, they answered, they said it was the reason they come to Manioc, they said it was their favorite restaurant, they said it had the best staff, all these kinds of things. Well, that is fantastic, but a lot of that information has to be put aside.
Sure.
So anything that could have been in that survey that would directly answer Winnie's LaBus, those questions had to be thrown out. And then we asked them, are you going on the trail? Do you go to the river? Are you interested in more green space, less green space? Are you interested in things that we wanted to know, sustainability, historic districts, clothing, shopping, eating habits, how often do you go out? What do you spend? Average incomes, all anonymous.
So how long ago was that?
That survey was 7 years ago.
So that's a great time frame. So if you go back, and you may have done, I'm sure you have, because you seem a very organized person.
I tried, but.
But if you go back and look, 7 years ago, we came up with this, and this is what the community wanted. 7 years later, which has given us plenty of time to flush this out, where, how would you say the survey has either guided your efforts or the results
Okay.
match or don't match?
So the survey got incorporated into the strategic plan. And then the plan goes out, and unfortunately with plans, often we pay a lot of money for them, anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000. Our plan was $75,000, okay? Depends on where you want to
So
get.
yours had binders.
Lots of stuff,
Yeah.
lots of stuff. And
Pretty
so.
pictures.
Hmm?
Pretty pictures.
Pictures, lots and lots of stuff. We also did we also brought in a retail consultant, because we were very, very interested in
Who were
retail.
they? That was French Parks?
No, that was, I don't know, I
I
still
think
have
they
it.
talked to us like that.
Yeah, and to me, and that part of the 75,000 was 15, I could have done with nothing else. What I ended up with was gold from that retail consultant. I mean, it really, really was good stuff. But there were a few kernels in the strategic plan where people scratched their head and went, really? And that's the stuff we focused on.
So we could,
Okay, for instance, we asked people, what was one of the drivers that brought them to Main Street Manioc, and we were certain it was going to be shopping and food. We sit around and we said we shouldn't even answer that because we know it's going to be food and shopping. And in fact, that was number one, and number two, food, eating out, and shopping. But 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all had to do with being outside, being along the river, trails, clean spaces, green spaces, bicycling. And when you saw that come in those kinds of numbers, for all the things, we went, aha, okay. And then when our retail consultant said, of all the districts that we gave him that we were competing with, that we felt were our competing districts, he said, you have one thing that they don't have, and that's where you should put your time and energy, which was the canal, the towpath, and the connection of a commercial corridor to the river. And we went, okay. And we have put so much energy into that and worked nonstop on it. And you can see the results. If you are a fan of Manioc, you can see the Venice Island Performing Arts and Recreation Center, the spray gardens, that kind of stuff was added. The changes to the parking lot with all native plantings and rain gardens around it, that was added. Trail work, the push to get the trails completed through William Penn Foundation, through DCNR, through DCED, the push to get that kind of stuff done, the big iconic bridge trail that connects the Kinwood Trail, the finding the extra money, while that was in the works for a long time, The push to get it done became paramount, the number one thing, get that done. So when that plan went from $2.5 million to do that trail, and it just kept going up every year it didn't get done, it seemed to go up $1 million. I don't know, I mean, we were, so to go from 2 point whatever it was to end up at 5.3, and making sure that any possible connection or stakeholder was getting those funds through building these relationships with whatever it was, state money, federal money that came through the state, stuff like that. And so we have those things right now. If you walk on our trail today, it is loaded with tile mosaics and murals, because art was way up there. And that's where we're putting our energy. That's where we're putting our energy. Do we care about what the street looks like? Yes, we did a streetscape plan too. What should the street look like? What could be changed? How can we make street amenities be better? Should there be more trash cans, different trash cans? All that kind of stuff. So if you look at our strategic plan, the old one, and you look at where we are today, and by the way, we need a new strategic plan. I can't get my board excited about doing it again, but it has to be done. I'm really proud of the few things that we decided to key in on and how well we've moved in that direction.
So how do you respond to the statement? Manningham's pretty good, but it's not worth going there because I can never get a parking spot.
Well, we have to respond to that statement all the time, and we do. How do you change a perception that is so ingrained that people don't even want to ask you about it anymore? And we are still struggling with that, because we have about 1,200 parking spaces in Manayunk right now, and yet there are people who still say there's no parking in Manayunk. We decided to do a streetscape plan, which we have completed, and in the streetscape plan, we're talking about how to message where our parking lots are, because most of our parking lots, there's only one parking lot in all of Main Street, Manayunk, that is a public lot that you can actually see as you drive down Main Street. Everything else is one way or the other. So people who come all the time know that there's plenty of parking. We're one of the few corridors, maybe one of the few places in America that actually has lowered our parking rate.
That's knowledge.
Okay, we've lowered our rate. We've just formed a new parking committee. We may lower.
I did too.
You did?
Yeah.
Fantastic. I mean,
I
how-
do it a lot. So
Yeah.
Last time I recall going, it was like, out to dinner was 12. It's like $12.
Yeah, it was 12, and now to come out for dinner it's 8, and our daytime rate is $2.50, which is too high. It's way too high, and we need to lower that, and I'm pushing for a new parking committee just formed about 3 weeks ago, and I want to see our rates go lower. We put in all new parking equipment in our lots. It's ordered now, and it will allow you to pay from your phone. You'll get a text, hey, you're about to expire, do you want to add another X to it? Just things that you would expect that other places are doing and implementing. Now, for us, the hard part is that we're in the city of Philadelphia. So we want multimeters, all right? We don't want slot machines any longer, because you put a lot of coins and often they never pay off anyway, okay? So, but the city of Philadelphia says, you're not even on our list for those. You're not even on the list. So we then came back to the city of Philadelphia and we said, we'll buy them ourselves. We'll pay for them. You can still get the revenue from them, and you can still write the tickets for them. We just want to be paid back for the about $190,000 to $220,000 it will cost to put them in. We could actually write a check today and do that ourselves.
For the kiosks?
For the kiosks, okay? The only reason we haven't is we are not allowed to. It's not our street, it's not, you know. And so we're trying to come up with a way where we can get this, well, I don't need to say his name, but the head of the Philadelphia Parking Authority to say, yes, we'll do that. What one of our board members wants us to do is go to the paper and say, look, we're willing to pay for them ourselves.
So
But we can't.
how well do you know Narberth? I don't know.
Very well.
So what you're knowing that you're a professional, we're getting free time out of you right now. What's your instinct when you hear our quandary that we kind of put out there?
My instinct, my first instinct is to make sure that somehow you protect what you already have, don't lose what you already have in terms of the scope and the scale of the buildings, what the storefronts look like, what the sidewalks look like, what the, just how it feels. It feels like it is a really beautiful neighborhood. And I would hate to see a lot of neon come in unless it was really used to.
I don't think anybody disagrees with you.
I mean, neon can be fantastic, okay? It can be fantastic if it's done in the way that neon was done in the 30s and 40s, okay? So, like, we have a restaurant on Main Street, it's called Taqueria Feliz, and it's neon, and they wanted neon, they really, really wanted neon, and we don't really like neon, and we're a historic district, and we have all these protections, and I'm so glad that we let them do it, because it's really, open letters, and you can see every letter, and it just feels good. But, it took a lot to make that happen. And I love the housing stock here. I think it's incredible. Who you attract to live here is the demographic that people dream about. People, in neighborhoods all throughout Philadelphia, probably the country, would go like this and say, how could I possibly get that demographic? And the families and the incomes and everything that you have is a dream scenario. So I would be really looking to protect that, and the simplest way to protect that is to get every single person who is already a stakeholder, because they already live here and they already love it here, to give input in an open and anonymous way, so that you're really hearing. I mean, you should literally be open to people saying anything they want to you, because you can throw it out. You don't have to do anything with it. I mean,
Even if we disagree with them?
even if you disagree with them. Yeah. Even if you disagree with them. But you might find that when you start hearing threads over and over again, I think that you're going to find, that people may agree with you guys more than you think.
We don't even agree with ourselves.
Well, that's right. I mean, look, I have a board of 21, I can't even fill my board, I have 17 people right now, okay? And votes are contentious, and people get angry with each other, and they're so passionate, and it's all out of a good place, like, it comes out of caring, but ultimately, we have our votes, we gain a consensus, and then, once it happens, we've agreed as a board that's what we're going to do. Once the board votes, part of the job of saying I want to be a board member, and I've never been on this is a political thing. I stay out of political things. So I don't know if it works the same way, but being that you're mostly volunteers, I would assume that you're here because you really care. And I think that there should be some internal agreement, if there isn't already, of what it means to be a board member and what it means once a vote happens. You did your best, you rallied your people, you fought for your point, and you lose, just like this current election. You make the best with it that you can, and you go forth united as a group saying, it might not be what I would have done. It's hard.
So one of the ideas, I'm switching topics, I don't know how much time we have, but I just want to get, and I'm sorry if I'm dominating this conversation. Feel free to jump in, right? You see I'm jumping in myself. So
I was going to say, I was hoping you'd take a breath at some point,
Jump
but I
in.
thought,
No, jump in, I'm sorry.
So one of the questions I had, you mentioned at the beginning that in Manioc you've gotten a lot of state and local funding for projects. What projects were you talking about there? What, when you said that?
Oh
And
my
later you
gosh.
started talking about the emphasis that you put on
Trail
connection to the
yeah.
canal and the trail. Is
I mean,
was
there's
it
all
that
different
kind of
kinds.
things?
There's
or-
all different kinds.
I just
There
wanted
are
to get a
some-
sense of what
yeah.
were you.
I mean, I tend to go for what's available in the direction of things we're working on.
Okay.
So, for instance, we've won very small grants. We've won $20,000 grants from the Commerce Department of the City of Philadelphia to do planning. Okay, so for instance, I just mentioned to you a streetscape plan that we did, and that plan was done by a really fabulous firm, Brown and Keener, and they wanted $55,000 to do the plan, and the city gave us 20, and our bid gave us a match of 20. So we said, you know, we've got to do it for 40, but we'll let you bill us for some expenses, some expendables and stuff like that. And that was just to do the streetscape plan. It wasn't a huge grant, but it really produced a fantastic document that we're now using to move forward with pedestrian lighting and things like that. So we've gotten that one to all the way to, gosh, I mean, like one of our biggest funders, and it's really unusual, is the William Penn Foundation. The William Penn Foundation has been funding us since 2003 because they see the value of the river, the trails, the watershed education, all that kind of stuff. And we've been.
I'm sorry, is that Kay's project?
It is Kay's project, but I have to tell you that, and by the way, I think that it's possible that William Penn might do some things in terms of green spaces. I mean, I don't know what they do, but I know they don't just do City of Philadelphia. I know they do out of the city. But one of the things that they really want to know is, when did you do your last plan? What kind of plans have you done? I mean, that comes up all the time. As a matter of fact, I agreed to do this because I do care about the wider community that I live in, okay? But I just did a talk like this for an hour in Berks County, okay? And one of the things that the Planning Commission does a lot of plans and a lot of planning, but they don't do a lot of planning with their constituents. I mean, the government does a lot of planning, but they don't do much planning in terms of people who live in these neighborhoods that are not doing well or not thriving or things like that. And I said to them, one of the things that I have learned, that if you are not actually doing a plan right now, you should be at least thinking about the next plan you're going to do. And it has really nothing to do about the outcome of the plan and the final document. It really doesn't. I mean, yes, to William Penn it does, or yes to this funder or that funder or a corporation, yes, it matters. But really, the number one reason to plan and to never stop planning is to let the people that you represent or that you're trying to bring know that you hear them. It gives all these different people a seat at the table, and it really, really makes problems not go away, but calm down.
People have heard, they know you're hearing them.
Yeah, you might not agree with them, but at least you heard them. At least you took the time to say, you know, what do you think about this? And so, you know, we have a lot of grants. So we've got William Penn grants, we've gotten money through DCNR, DCED. We have not, we are considering right now going for a RACP grant or an RPAC grant. I don't know if you know them as either names, but that's through the state of Pennsylvania. Very hard to get, long waiting list, but it's politically motivated, so we're working on one of them right now. But there's also things that we've done. We're in year 8 of the CDC tax credit grant, which I think 30 different places in Philadelphia have now. People who were in it early got $1 million over 10 years, all for economic development. All that's.
Do you want to take a minute to describe that? Because I don't know if I'm familiar with it, but it's a Philadelphia thing, right?
It's a Philadelphia thing.
Yeah.
It's just Philadelphia, but there might be things that are out there. I haven't done the research in the counties or the state. So what the CDC tax credit is, it allows us to partner with a company inside of Philadelphia who pays business privilege taxes in excess of $100,000 a year to the city of Philadelphia. So you're really looking for large firms with a lot of people. It's usually law firms or major corporations. We partnered with Parkway Corporation, a huge corporation in Philadelphia, and they are our CDC tax credit. So instead of sending $100,000 in business privilege tax to the city of Philadelphia. They send it to us
Yeah.
instead. And we use that, and then you're only eligible for 10 years. After that, you can apply again. You go into a pool. It depends on how many people are applying, because there's, I believe that the city of Philadelphia really topped it out at $3.5 million a year that they were willing to not collect in taxes. And then when you come back in now, it's $85,000 now. It's not $100,000.
So it's only 10 years of $85,000 a year
Yeah.
of free money.
And so, and the politicians are fiddling around with it right now.
Sure, of
I mean,
course.
because it used to be that it was all about economic development and business improvement districts and doing the work that business improvement districts do, or CDCs for that matter. But now there are a lot of nonprofits who say, hey, wait a minute, I want $1 million over. And it really is upsetting, because there's so much money out there for causes, and there's so little money for economic development. And it's so important. I mean, the work in economic development trickles out from the businesses to employees to the service businesses that supply those businesses with products. I mean, it's just such an amazing thing. So that's been, but I'm in year 8, so I can see that that might be a good.
Did you have any other?
No, that was the big question we had.
I have one last question.
Sure.
One of the things we're looking at is potentially a pop-up park that would be in Narberth, in the gas station area, with a designer that's kind of been working with us. Nobody's
The gas station area right here?
Exactly.
Mhm.
That did the one viaduct park, if you ever saw that, in the 10 Cal Hill area. And so we're debating what the values of it. It'd probably be like a 3 to 5 year plan of some type.
Mhm.
What's your instinct when you hear something like that creates an outdoor open space, at the same time, takes place?
Well, it's defunct, that gas station. It's been empty for a long time.
No, it's got a very active
It would
fitness
be a
business in
partnership
it now.
with the private
It
business.
would be, yeah.
Well, first, I love that. I mean, that is always the best story, is private-public partnerships and all that. I actually think that a little dollop of green right in the middle of town, or if it's not green, play area, could be a good thing. It could be a very good thing. And you don't have to spend a fortune. You don't have to go all in. You can see what the reaction. You could ask people. You have Narberth. I'm making an assumption from when I was a regular here. So if this is not the assumption any longer, but it seems to me that it's a lot of moms and tots and strollers. And is it still like that?
Strollers and dogs.
There are, but there's a
others too.
significant number of people who are singles or don't have
Older
children.
people.
Yeah, and older people.
That's the
so-
beauty of this thing,
Yeah.
it serves both.
Right.
It is. I mean, I do feel that
Very few 25 to 35s though.
Yeah.
That's sort of new, young, right out of the nest.
Is that, are you looking for that?
Professionals.
Sure.
Millennials?
We don't.
It's a missing tooth in the demographic for sure.
It is, but it
It's
does
mostly
bring,
probably driven by housing costs.
yeah,
It's just
it does
extremely
bring, it
expensive.
brings pluses and minuses, and we went, Matty Young swung way, way, way too far towards that demographic, and it has been a hard-fought battle
Yeah.
to come back from that. And we have come back from that and widened the demographics. But I do think when you create a space that is beautiful, comfortable, shaded, and has seating, that you create a space that people will use. There's no doubt about it. Anywhere we have created spaces like that, they've been used. On the beaten path and off the beaten path. You have a lot of green space here in Narberth, but it feels kind of athletic oriented, yes?
It's fair to say.
Yes.
I mean, there's the section, am I pointing the right way? There's
Yeah.
a section over here
Yeah,
with
the bulk of
swings.
the public,
Yeah.
You
yeah, the
know,
bulk of the public.
Yeah, but you don't want a play area, you want a pocket park. You want, and they're very different, and one is about grabbing a cup of coffee and a bagel from somewhere in town, hopefully, and sitting down with Either if you're old school, a magazine or in the newspaper, and if you're like most of us, your phone or an iPad and just spending the time and relaxing and enjoying being outside. So I do think that is becoming more in demand. I think that we are all so in these devices for so much of our day that if we can take a little time and be outside, we do that. Now, the reason I say yes is because we have things in Philadelphia and one in Mannion Club Parklets, and they take up 2 parking spaces. There's one outside of Bolo Coffee. It's a very desirable space. We're looking to build more of this. We have a little tiny park right on Main Street that was part of our streetscape plan to be completely redeveloped. Instead of being a really beautiful planted area with a few benches now, it's going to be a flat open area with seating all around, maybe a couple tables, maybe some umbrellas, maybe a new place for our holiday tree, maybe a new place for a little band to play or something musical to happen outside. That's part of our plan. We felt we really needed that. So I kind of, if your demographic of the people who live and hang out here, I'm not talking about visitors, but your core group, that's what we were told we needed, and it has, everywhere we've done it, it has paid off. Everywhere.
Heavily used for all these parklets.
Yeah, we want more. It's just the problem is with parklets, they take away parking spaces. Each one takes away 2. And so you want to talk about fighting at a board meeting, talk about taking 2 street parking spaces off of Main Street in Mannion. You'll have people want to go across the table and grab.
We have no idea what you're
Yes.
talking about.
We have no idea what.
Parking spot,
Right,
right
yeah.
all the time.
Yeah, we've had those spots.
Well, this has
Parking
been
is-
great. We've
parking is
watched our
tough.
time
Yeah.
here.
Okay.
So,
May I ask one question?
Yeah.
The little seating areas and places like that you added to Mannion, was
Mhm.
that added in response to what you learned from your surveys as part of your strategic plan?
Absolutely.
This is what people want. because-
100%.
Because don't you need to get people to say, yes, I want you to spend my tax dollars on that?
yes and no. Our dollars that we spend are all generated from our businesses.
Oh, see, ours aren't.
Okay?
Ours aren't.
So, the business dollars get spent in a way that enhance the business environment. Now, it's a great thing that in enhancing the business environment, you make your community nicer. And you put planters in, and you put better lighting in. It's a wonderful thing that there's a symbiotic relationship between those 2 kinds of things. But I also feel, this is my last thing, I'm just saying it, you're not asking me, I'm just saying it. The businesses need to step up and put more than just their rent money into the mix on this. They must step up and put their dollars in a way that is committed to the ultimate goals of the district. Because they will be the #1 beneficiaries of it. Sure, property values go up and home values go up, and that's all great. And individually, everyone benefits that way. I think that if we didn't have the bid, and ours is a very small one, our average bid contribution, now, we have more storefronts, but you might want to pull commercial uses in, so I don't know how many you would have, but we have about one of the smallest bids in Philadelphia. People think we have a huge bid in Mannion. And we have a $260,000 bid. The average bid payment is about $600 a year. And our CDC is the larger chunk of the money, and that's generated through parking. I just think that businesses have to step up and be part of the solution, both with what they do with their storefronts, what they do with their sidewalks, what they do with their money. Because they're what people see, yes. I mean, people see a beautiful Victorian house painted great colors, and that's fantastic. That's just my 2 cents on that.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
I really appreciate it. Thank you. And do you have any other cards you can leave?
I do.
Or,
So I just want to say, I mean, I came here tonight, I am not available to do this, really, okay? So I'm happy to talk and have quick conversations. I'm not asking, I don't want to be a consultant. I have 2 jobs right now.
Don't need another one.
I don't need another one.
Come on, ask a busy person, that's all it is.
Well, that's true, that's true. And I came here because, I don't know how many cards you want. I came here because I grew up coming to this town, and I came here because Kay asked me to come here. So I'm happy to take a phone call. I'm happy if I can, give you names or ideas. I would love to be in a brainstorming session of things that you guys are thinking about doing. You have, really, it's an amazingly beautiful town, and I don't think anyone would want it to change a whole lot,
Jane, what do you think our reputation is right now?
Right now,
Somebody says Narberth, but you know what you think.
I think people think beautiful, quiet, safe, quaint. Those are the words that come to my mind right now. But I also, if you're trying to get me to think about coming here to go to the movies, you've work to do. I don't know how well the movie theater's doing. I hope it's doing great, okay? If you're trying to get me to come here to have dinner, there's work to be done. If you're trying to get me to come here and stop in a little shop that's a specialty shop, or a gallery, or a clothing store, that's great. That message, I think, is out there really well. So it'd be nice to see more of that, but that's the hardest thing to get. Small, quaint boutique retail is the hardest thing to get. And just look at Manioc. We have 13, count them, 13 salons or spas are now. Okay, so if you can somehow through zoning and planning legislate against that, do it now. If you're thinking of changing it anyway.
Yeah.
We have 33 liquor licenses. So you may want to think about what is a nice balance for your town. How much is the right amount? To keep this feeling the way that it does. It feels great, I love the events that you guys do. I don't know. I haven't come to fireworks here in a long time. You still do that?
It's a big one for us.
You
But that's
should.
actually not part of downtown, that's like a community.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's attached to
Right.
here.
Right.
It's attached.
Some more to discuss. Thank you.
so
Mayor.
much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, so
We only have
much.
15
I
minutes
will.
left.
Oh, I'm sorry. Not having-
It's okay, no, it's good, this is really
Thank you.
great.
Sure.
I
You're
would
welcome.
suggest we go right to the budget first,
I was gonna say number 4.
because we need to get that
We do need that.
to, the side.
And if you can synthesize your statements to reflect the conversation on the budget, please.
That's great. I
I just have a couple of sentences. I don't have a lot to say tonight, if you want me to just go quick. I just wanted to talk about where we are in 2016, and so as you're trying to figure out the 2017 budget. In 2016, my estimation, and Sean may be able to correct me on this, is we'll probably end up just under 15,000, maybe in the $14,000 range in what we spend on economic development, between what we've spent so far and what I anticipate at the end of the year with the Dickens Festival. Which is more expensive. We bought some memberships to some of the local groups, and the borough has contributed to a few of the different events financially, but most of it's paying for the promotion of the events.
So how would we change if we put 10,000 more towards that? Would that be-
If you were going to add 10,000 more, what I would do is I would make sure that we keep supporting the events and add a couple more things. One is some kind of, if we can, as far as some of the things Graham was talking about, the major component of that I'm very interested in is figuring out some way to survey our people and survey our people about what the residents want, what the locals want, and also find a way to get some grant money. Because, you know, our economic development budget is like, it's almost laughable after listening to this. I mean, we're on such a different scale. When she talks about, oh, this is a small grant we got, you know, that's more than we've ever spent in a year on economic development.
Yeah, small
You know,
grant,
that's
$20,000,
small
I think
grant.
that would
You know,
be
so
great. I'll
like,
take
if we
that.
could do some grant writing, if we could get some grant writing, we could do some more things. But to answer your question, 10,000 more is some kind of a marketing piece to people, let them know what we have, something along the lines of what we talked about before with that Narberth guide, something with a good business directory and a map of the area so that people, whether online or in print, can look at it and be like, oh, look at these different things, and here's a map, here's exactly where
That's
it is.
different money, that's one chunk. And then the other chunk we're talking about is survey and plan, writing, building, guidance, whatever.
Yes.
So they're two different elements.
Yeah, well,
They don't-
the survey, I mean, I would start, if we had almost no budget for it, I would start with Survey Monkey and use the mayor's NARBNet list, use the Narberth Athletic Association list,
It's also the execution.
use my list, you know.
Yeah.
I would say, start there and, but, do that, grant writing, and then, the two pieces to spend some money on would be, like a web and print piece. That's a marketing piece to let people know, what's out there. Because I think we can keep, we put all of our eggs right now are in that basket of events. We do these events. All our eggs are in there. But the one thing that we haven't done, the one challenge that I haven't really gotten past is when I have these people, like we have 14 events in Narberth every year that bring 500 or more people. I run 7 of them right now. It's looking like I might run 10 of them next year because there's no one running the 3 music festivals next year. So, like, once we have these people, what do we do with them? I want them to go away either with something in their hands or knowing, like, if I go to Narberth, narberthbusiness.com, I can see everything that Narberth has. So, anyway, I'll keep things short now. Pass it on.
All right.
And then the other element is, if we want to endorse putting money towards the pop-up park that we talked about. I think that type of thing, we've got numbers going from 20,000 to 200,000 on that. And I think the key to that type of program personally is to recognize that if we are going to do that, to find, some of it would have to be borrow funding. There are other fundings, fund opportunities that should be out there. Whether we can get them or not, we're not sure. I'm not sure. And what our cap is on spending on that type of thing would also dictate, what we do. I think I'd like to see us, designate money towards that. And if we have a certain amount towards it, I would recommend we put $40,000 of borrowed money towards it. I think we can get other type of matching or other grant things. And if we don't get it, we don't spend it because we're not going to spend until we have it. But if we don't have a commitment, we're not going to get to the other monies out there. We may be in a very nice position where we spend 0 or 10,000 of it, and we may not do it. But at some point, we have to say, is this something we'd like to see with that benefit for the community, and does the community want this type of thing? And so that's my belief is, I'd like to hear from either of you.
I still feel like we're premature in this, because I still feel like we have a lot of questions to answer. I have heard a really good answer on how does the legality of this work. We've got this public-private partnership here. I just don't have a good sense of that, because I don't
We
think.
can go ahead until you got clear answers, but you can't.
I don't want to spend a lot of money until we know whether it's gonna work.
But we're not
out.
spending anything until we know that. That's what,
Right.
I think that's where the disconnect between you and I is. I mean, if we say,
I-
yes, we're committed to it if it works out, and we go to our attorney, here, but sits here, and he says, I talked to them, this type of agreement I don't recommend, or this is gonna be onerous to its cost. We say, thank you, we don't spend the money, and the money doesn't go in. If we don't designate the money, we can't have him go over and negotiate, and then come back and say, I negotiated a great deal for us, and now you have to vote. We've already done this.
He can't negotiate a deal for us, I don't think.
Who?
The lawyer? I
The
don't think
lawyer's
he can
negotiating legal terms. We would.
And I'm not even suggesting that he's negotiating legal terms with the individual, just looking into what does it mean to have this public-private partnership? What do we need to be considering there? Is it locking us into something that, related to this property that we don't want to be locked into, or I just don't know.
Well, those are all the questions, until you start asking them,
Right.
you don't get, but you can't start asking them, because it's a unique property. It's not a situation where we have.
I just don't agree that you can't ask the questions until you've allocated money. I just
You can, but
don't see why
you
you
have to
can't.
remember that we've also been in a position where we went, and this council before you were on it, agreed to a certain amount, and went and negotiated.
Do you
and then we
remember
backed
what
out.
Jane just said about if you lost, let it go and move forward?
We're not talking about.
Well, I've heard you bring that up many times at council meetings, and I'm just saying I think
No,
that's
I'm not.
past and it's done, and it's not something to think about or to be factor in here, because that's something that just didn't happen.
It's a perception you have, but that's not, my perception is, we have a great opportunity in the middle of town to build something that would have great economic impact, would be something that people around the community said, wow, this would be a terrific.
And I've heard other people say, I'm not sure I want you to spend that much of my tax dollars,
Well, that's
because they've
different.
heard the
And that's a-
money
and that's a
now for
legitimate question.
$200,000, and then other people who said, I wouldn't use that at all, so why would you spend my money
Sure.
that way? I would rather you have better trees throughout, or whatever, just, something
No,
else.
that's a great.
And so I really like what Jane was saying, that you really need to survey and find out what people want, that you may be surprised by what the public wants.
So-
And I feel like we're kind of putting the cart before the quarter horse here, that we're jumping headlong into something without really having a vision. I mean, that's been my, I just feel like we should, and on all of our committees actually, but need to think about what's the vision, not just what's right in front of us today, but what is this long term, and what do we want to do long term, and how do we then, once we've gotten an idea of what that vision is now, how do we implement? Is it this park? Is it something else? Is it, I just feel like we don't know enough yet to be able to go ahead and say, here, let's put that money in the budget.
So, my opinion here is that if we're talking about $30,000 and setting it aside, asking it to be set aside, should we get enough of our questions answered for a contract where we would be working with somebody for 3 to 5 years, and this would be an experience for the borough, and they're going to raise, there'd be some private funding or grant funding, who knows what, to make up the difference, and then within that we work. That doesn't seem crazy to me in terms of the amount of money or the commitment, and if we don't like the arrangement, we don't do it. If it's not a beneficial arrangement, if it doesn't make legal sense, if there's no protections, we don't do it. If the owner doesn't agree, in the end, it doesn't happen. The money stays in the budget, we move forward. To me, that's a separate thing, and it's almost like, just like in our own budgets, just like in our own life, you can want to plan your whole life and then back up and do everything perfectly. But it doesn't really work like that. Like, we should be planning where we can plan. We're doing a lot of planning now. We're finally entering into a strategic plan. But this committee is designed to set up to make sure, to ensure economic development. And we have Ed with the Business Association running events like crazy, and frankly not getting paid for a good part of what he does. And that's not fair. And we don't deserve to ask him to do it. We don't deserve, and he thankfully gives us a lot of it. But we ought to be paying for things that we're receiving a benefit for in the borough. So it seems to me I would have 3 things from the takeaway here. One is that we ask for some money for a survey, a professional survey of sorts, which reaches as many people, and we get it out as many ways as we possibly can, gather some information. I know that we have tools of our own writing that survey. I don't know, we could all have a lot of good questions, but phrasing that properly, I think we could find money. Maybe the businesses would kick in some, I have no idea, but I think it would be nice to set aside or ask for some money to do a good survey, to do it, and also maybe a little bit of market analysis that we can have on our website with the demographics and the market issues. 30,000 for the park, something for the survey, and to bump up what Ed has been doing, give him some more resources to work with.
So does that mean that you're putting off the table the proposal from Graham?
No,
Is that because
I was just
because I-
asking where we are now.
Well, isn't that something we have to decide if we want to make that
Yes.
request for the 2017 budget? And I guess if I'm looking at this, I'm saying if we really want to be strategic about what we're doing, we should be, I agree, Ed should have some more money to be working with, because he is doing an awful lot for us, and you're right, there's a couple more things you could do if you have more money, that'd be great. And I think we really should consider something like the study that Graham and the work that Graham is suggesting. To me, those are the two things that we should be focusing on. But everything we add to the budget is going to impact the taxes. And I think we have to think about that carefully.
But economic development is literally about making sure that you do have a healthy, vibrant,
I
taxable
don't disagree.
economy. And I think that that's something, I don't think there's any question that the park would add value to the town, that more people would have places to gather to buy food and sit and eat. So that's a definite benefit. And the fact that it would be, that we're only putting in 30 of the numbers that if we did that, the fact that there would be more put in by private investors, it seems like a great idea.
They would. I
Right.
just
But
feel
if
like
we
there's
did
so
it, we
many
don't have to do
ifs
it.
here.
But we don't have to go forward with it at that point. This is simply saying, if in the end, we got the investment was there, the contract was approved, all the questions we have about the contract, we have to go to Walco. And we're not really qualified to ask or answer those questions. We would have to go talk to the person, hear your concerns, hear everybody's concerns, talk to the owner, and come back with us with what is the answer.
I mean,
we're
sure, he
not-
has to start with talking to the owner. I think there's gotta be just basic legal.
He can answer, but I'm saying I'm not qualified to
No,
answer
I
the
know.
question.
Yeah.
But the question has to be asked to Walter,
Right.
it's not, here.
Right.
So the point being that starting from this committee, it would be nice if you had all your answers, for example. And it seemed like, and it all made sense to you from that point of view at least. And then, it seemed like a good deal, the owner was willing, and the investment was there from other parties. It doesn't seem like a lot of money for the benefit right in the downtown area. That's my opinion on it.
Well, I
if
think
they
we need
could-
to see what are all the other needs that we have in the borough before we make that
Well, the thing
decision.
is, we're doing two things. Well, first, this would be a recommendation from economic development. Then second, it would get to the full council to look at other recommendations.
Right.
But if economic development doesn't recommend it, then
It has to
we're
go.
cutting it off before the full council conversation.
Right, and I don't want us to do that, but I'm just not convinced that I
I'm trying
really
to
do
get it
feel
out
like
of
we're
our
putting the
committee
cart before the
into,
horse.
I'm trying to get it out of our committee with some numbers to the broader group so that we can have a bigger discussion with some of it. I'm trying to get it to that point. So if we just let it sit here, we're just, how do we?
No,
No,
we're
we're,
not.
I want it, yeah, I would have said, we should have asked Walco a lot of the legal questions already, as long as.
But
we
those
were
things
willing
have
to
been done
specify.
before. This isn't,
Yeah.
this is a particular property, but they've been done before. And I'm not, I have to say, it's a lot of work to get it there. It's not something new. In fact, as she mentioned, public-private partnerships are terrific things. If we're afraid of it, then that's another story.
No, it's just, I just think we need to know more about it, to know whether it's
Yeah.
really something we want to get ourselves into.
Well, were there any questions you didn't have answered by the people who came in to do it? Remember
When we had
Oh, well, they were just talking about
right.
how they would, I mean, they obviously want to do the gold-plated version of this. I mean, they were very excited.
Well, they were
about
saying
that.
they can size it. But what I'm saying is, when you said you have a lot of questions, I want to make sure you.
No, not for them. My questions questions are really how this public-private partnership is gonna work, who's gonna be responsible for maintaining it, who's gonna be responsible for the liability issues related to it, all of those questions, I feel like we have to. I don't think we can say we wanna spend money until we have those questions answered, I just don't see that.
But I guess normally what you do in something like this is say, if those questions are answered satisfactorily, then we spend the money. But if we don't have the money designated in the budget, then we just keep putting it off, and we don't do anything for our town.
Disagree with you, but we also know that we've got a lot of things that we have addressed over the years that we need to address in the budget.
Oh, sure, but in economic development, this is something,
Yeah.
I think that's where, we'll go through that in
Yeah.
finance,
Mhm.
and then support council.
Yeah.
So the question really is, I don't know, so I guess we just need to come up with a recommendation, and if it's not complete, then we make sure we note that to council, and if it's,
Right,
if
so,
there's a difference of opinion than I do, then great.
so the question would be, what are you asking for? You're asking for 10 on top of the 15? What are you asking for?
For the economic development budget for next year, I would say 25 is what I would say. I would say spend 25 on economic development next year
For programming, we'll call it.
for everything that we put in
That's program.
this year. This year, as everybody knows, that, my contract probably took half of that 15,000, and then, we spent an additional 7,000 on other things, So we'll spend 15,000 this year. I think if we added 10,000 to the 15,000 we spend this year, we can really get some bang for that $10,000.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but do you anticipate having a longer conversation in the committee?
A few more minutes.
We have a zoning hearing that's scheduled to have started at 7:30 in this room. It went out by legal advertisement, so I have to hold the hearing in this room.
Okay.
And shift to the other room while
Yeah,
that
is
starts.
that okay? Can we all do that?
Yeah.
Sorry, Sean. No problem.
Wondering.
What's the parking design?
246 Blue Line.
So not an official Narberth anymore here.
No, that's.
In the Mary.
Oh, okay.
That's the address, when I look at the address on the Google Maps.
How could it possibly be better than here?
Well,
You're close to the pond.
only in only in the sense that we met our criteria.
Right.
I'm supposed to say no, but also I'm just surprised to see the price tags on the properties.
Hello. Indeed. Oh, yeah.
It always amazes me when there's more meetings in here
You worked for Vanya.
than you expect.
I think so.
Oh no, it's gonna be loud.
Something up on the roof.
Okay.
Well, or it could be the down below, yeah. But it's, I felt like there was, like I'm hearing something. up there.
Just have to sit right by y'all so I can get.
Really, exactly. You'd be right in our faces.
This lighting
Otherwise,
is not going to do us justice.
it's too much background noise. So I will try not to be too intrusive, but.
Well, I really like the process with the programs to see how they change them.
Yeah.
That really works.
Oh, explain that after you see.
I was glad to
Yeah, no, it's good.
have a chance to look at it.
Yeah.
It was fun to play.
Yeah.
Say, okay, where do I go?
I'll grab your chair.
I'm gonna go, I just want to say bye. Okay, you're welcome. I also wanted to tell you, I don't know if you guys want to hear this, so I called Dan Cook.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The tomato crop. I called him, because I was just like, hey, I have this idea about something to do.
Are we on camera now? Just so she knows.
We are. Is that
Something to do
okay?
with Tomato pie. It's like a business idea that I'm playing with.
Grab a seat.
So I just picked up the phone and called him. And I said to him, hey, so while I have you on the phone, I have to go to this meeting. I said, would you ever want to, like, to come and chat with some members of economic development? And I said, totally will.
Now, he's been in the, was it the senior or the son? They both, but they've always been very good community members, you know.
He's very happy to connect with you guys.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you're interested in doing that.
Well, actually, that was one of the topics I was going to add to the agenda if we could. Was we had started to talk about potential business and property owners breakfast, but that was an area where we've done before. That's been really good conversation, good feedback.
Yeah, I just had this wild idea. I don't think I'm going to pursue it, but that burrito would be really great for like a co-working space. And it would be like contribute to the economic development, whatever. So I called him just to ask about the space, and I said, you know, would you consider like a short-term lease? And I said, you know, maybe like 6 months, a year. And he said, well, no, maybe like 10 years. So I don't think.
Well,
I think my idea is just is very, you know, pie
You
in
found the
sky.
right co-working organization because the furniture moves and comes and goes. So there's some good things there. I'm not a big fan of it, but I just had a disagreement with somebody on co-working space, and they convinced me I was wrong. I didn't,
There are
you know.
some people that is the way they
Anyway,
want
so I'll
it.
follow
It's
up.
amazing.
All right, bye.
I just, as we moved from the old place to here, Sean did mention that he's gonna talk to Ed about the numbers, because actually, not all of those numbers come out of economic development. They actually come,
Out of
so,
other
yeah.
places.
So
Oh,
his
okay.
final number is gonna be the number of meetings.
Okay.
Which is good for us, I think. So
Yeah.
Good. So I wanted to get to, I do think we should put something in the budget for next year for professional services along the lines of some kind of a survey and some market research. I don't know whether Ed can do that or even, I don't know. But I think that that's, in terms of, you know, giving us, you know, I talked to Sean separately about, there have been boroughs who've done a strategic plan just for economic development, just for their business district. And it's possible that we get some support from the Montgomery County Planning Commission on some level, you know, to give us some sort of strategic planning document, which would, you know, they're not going to do the market research, they're not going to do the surveys, but so whatever component they can help us offset, which would be in-house in a sense, and whatever parts that Sean and Matt can do. But I still think there's going to be a component where we need someone to actually, so I'd like to set aside, similar to the 30 in the sense that it's not spent unless we have a reason to spend it, we have someone to spend it on. And so, but I'd like to set it aside for next year, some amount for professional services. And I'm open to whatever amounts you think we could reasonably, realistically ask for.
Well, and I'll go back to, I mean, is this the idea, this is the kind of thing that Graham's proposing? Is this what
Yeah,
you're
this would
thinking? So-
cover a number of the things in Graham's proposal. And, you know, it goes, so whatever parts Montgomery County can do for us,
Yeah.
whatever parts Ed doesn't do, but having, I think a survey, and then having a document in the end where there's some kind of a plan. I think getting the seed money going for that would be important to put in the budget somehow. Otherwise, it's never going to get done.
Right, no,
You know, and that's the
Agreed.
thing.
I think the key also is grant. One of the things that kind of refreshed me from her conversation was grant writing.
Right.
And even though I think downstairs we've got 2 excellent grant writers, knowing the grants that are in this space and identifying that's an area where a professional, somebody that's been doing it, maybe a Graham or somebody else, would be extremely helpful, because identifying the grants in a timely manner is really tricky.
Yeah.
I see a lot of grants on the
The
redevelopment
deadlines.
authority. and they
Windows
come up
open
with-
and close,
Yeah.
and you have to be there at the time of their.
Exactly.
And they want them, like, not in this case, shovel in the ground, but the concept of, if we get it, is there money ready to spend on? And that goes back to the pop-up park concept that
Yes.
we get to. If we, you know, if we can apply for a grant, if we can do all these things, then, you know, these windows open up. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of money out there. But unless you are ready to do that, you're, you know, with the internal funding from the borough, you know, if we get there and we say, all right, we figured out a great way, the borough has no liability, everything's clean with that. And guess what? The survey said that people do actually want what I suspect they want. Now we're ready to go on something in spring. It'd be great to do it now. There's a new grant that's open. We only got Wolf's administration for 2 more years. Let's see what comes. You know, they're opening up some things. I guess saw about 8 or 10 RACB grants go through this today, which is the first step. But the, you know, as she said, are very competitive.
And you do grants? I mean, that was a part of, I just want to make sure. Okay.
So
It was not a part of the proposal I offered.
Okay.
Are you okay with my making or suggestion or comment?
Sure, it's a
Yeah.
it's a small group, you know.
Okay. The matter of the pop-up park and the question of putting money for that in budget mode now. You're looking at finding grant opportunities. Certainly, the benefit of having a match is really important. And perhaps to budget for something doesn't mean you have to spend it, as Bob was suggesting, but to have the availability of something if the conditions are met, if your requirements are satisfied, you know, such as the legal and the liability, etc., that money could be available to attract other money as the seed towards the match. And you know, in the absence of having that set aside, you may not be able to get a grant.
I understand that. It's more in the grand scheme of the budget. Is that going to fit in there
Right.
for 2017?
Sure.
Don't know yet.
So, so I think the kind of, what I'm going to propose at this point is we put 3 things into the budget, and then have a straw, or we can have the statement coming out of agreement or disagreement. It doesn't seem like you're going to agree on the pop-up part. So, you know, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm not saying, you know, I just feel like I don't know enough yet
Yeah.
to be able to say, yes, I want that built into our tax rates for 2017. I just don't know yet.
So I'm going to suggest we put $25,000 for programming, which implies the $15,000 plus an additional $10,000 to make up.
Sean said that.
Well, we'll find, if that's,
So,
for purposes of the concept of what's spending, I don't know where that money is coming from elsewise. But we've spent conceptual $15,000 towards economic development. It came out of another fund, we'll find out.
Well, yeah, and that might be where it belongs,
Yeah.
so it's another fund. So, yeah.
And that'll be correct.
25 for the programming, we'll call it.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna say, I'm gonna say 30, the 2 of us at least think if we wanna ask for a set aside for the pop-up park. And then, is that it?
And then how much we want for professional services
Right.
towards.
So the professional, what is your sense of that? What is your sense of that?
I don't have anything to go on other than Graham's proposal,
Right.
which, I mean, and looking at that, I thought, you know, that all the steps outlined, I think that makes sense. Seems, you know, like things you want to do, at least the first 2 phases, for sure, to get us the data, to know where we're heading with things and have an understanding. But I can't say, oh yeah, that's the right price for that. I don't know. That's, you know.
Oh, no, we would have,
Yeah.
we're doing it for budget purposes.
Right, so.
We know we've got professional, this is what they
I
do.
thought that was your
That's in
question.
the middle of it.
Okay, so I misinterpreted your question.
And the question I think is, do you think it's worthwhile to spend on this type of activity?
Yeah.
And if we do, then we've got a parameter to start with, and then
Yeah.
we flesh it out to
And
see if
I
that's.
think we do need to do that. I think, I really appreciate what Jane was saying, that you need to have a strategic plan. That you need to start working towards that. And we don't even have the data to be able to do
We
it.
have to pay for the data, is the point, is that the data would come from
Yeah,
somebody,
Right.
right? So.
This would be a factor towards the strategic plan. Often if you're doing that, you're gathering this type of background.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm confused confused.
I said, I heard what Jane said about, it's important to have a strategic plan, and I'm like, yeah, that's great, but we don't even have the data yet to do a strategic plan, so we need the data. So that's why I think,
Can I ask when the last comp plan was done? Because that's kind of, it's out, that hasn't happened in a while.
comprehensive plan, isn't that being worked on right now by
Yeah,
the
we don't
Montgomery
have
County
that.
Planning
There's-
Commission? We
there's
don't
never
have one
been-
yet.
Okay,
They're
because
working
these sometimes can work together.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying, is that it's possible that, we can ask Montgomery County to, what they provide, how that relates to what we're asking, that they could add on. So, okay, so we agree we need to do something with these professional services, with the background information, with, heading towards a strategic plan. It's gonna cost something. The main thing, I don't know that it's easy to find comparable numbers for this and find, I don't think we're trying to get a competitive set of numbers. I think we're trying to get a
It's
ballpark.
professional service.
Yeah, because like Ardmore, I think Graham mentioned that Ardmore had, it was like twice the amount of money because it's a whole different situation.
Yeah,
So-
it's their way.
Lower Marion,
Lower
for
Marion.
the township.
Yeah, so I think, it would be, are we comfortable with some amount of this asking for, and then I guess the bigger conversation in council would be which of these services, what do we want to focus on? Could we just say, well, start here, this is where we're comfortable, and do we need to get more information about the pricing?
Yeah.
But I think that's a thorough account of council-wide.
Right, yeah.
So how much do you think is, I have to say, I've been traveling the last few days, I haven't dug into this plan enough to know what I think is valuable and not valuable.
Well, I mean, you broke it down into the 3 different phases, and I think we could just, use those as guidelines and say, hey, these, here are the phases and see what folks on council think about those different.
So bring the entire
Aspects.
thing into council.
Yeah.
I think we've got 2 different processes going on. We have a budget, and then we've got an actual project, and spending the budgeted money. I think for today's purpose, since we need to bring a budget to council tomorrow for economic development, to put forward to the public to get response, I think we have to just say what the right number is. I don't know what that, me personally, I'm not as strong on this aspect as you, it sounds like you are, but
I just think we need this,
Yeah.
we need this in some form.
So of that,
You know,
there's a lot of different things going on here. I see 12,400.
no, the total is 28,560. That's for the phase 3, which is the marketing piece.
Yeah.
And, so,
Spend that.
yeah, so do we decide if we want that or don't we, it's like that's, but there's a number of things in phase 1 and phase 2 that we've already been talking about.
So it's, I thought it's like 10.5. So
With some expenses,
so I would say
purchasing data, so.
$12,000 towards planning. Right? I'm open to.
Yeah. No, it's,
Does that seem enough reasonable? 12 to 15?
12 to 15 is probably, yeah, if you say that.
We have to put a number out, so either, if you're not comfortable with 12 to 15.
Oh, 15.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to send Sean an email since he couldn't
CC
finish up
Charlie
with
on.
Charlie, and everybody, our community.
You might as well set it off. The recommendation to,
Okay.
is this, and I mean, be very clear that,
I
we're
don't have
not,
anything like that for our communities.
should do it.
It's interesting, okay,
It's
all
just,
right.
I mean, there's no,
I'm still waiting to hear back an answer on some
We've got
patient
it.
property today, so I'm not ready to say something yet.
but we're gonna be putting forward to the budget,
I know.
soon.
I
So,
know.
Okay. I'll send this, I'll send an email out with these recommendations, we'll hash out whatever we have to hash out going forward.
Yep.
I would, I guess in terms of the questions that just need to be, any questions that I think the one needs to answer, we should make sure he's looking at.
Yeah, that's.
Well, he's gonna have to go back and research. He's
There's a
not gonna
lot.
be able to just answer it off the top of his head. I don't think, that feels mean to expect him to do that.
No, I think we can,
Poor guy.
maybe we should let him know, so he
The other thing would be, another business, I don't think we need to go over there and propose at this point, or just kind
I
of
don't
wait
think
till.
we need
Okay.
it. I think
That was for budget
Just the budget
purposes.
purposes.
Then would you want to do a property owner business owner breakfast or something like that?
Yeah.
Just so when we've done these before, they've been, I think they've been terrific in the sense of first being inclusive to business owners and property owners that the borough is here, who can reach out to, who
Yeah.
are we? Second, we get to hear from them, and, you know, we're not necessarily surprised when we hear from them, but it gets the dialogue open, you know, from the school. There's always people that being somebody who uses this town as much as I do, that I'm surprised, I didn't know you had a business. We do try to keep it to people in retailish service businesses as opposed to offices, just because the interaction with offices isn't as important in the sense of helping them beyond the property aspects.
Bob, are you referring to like public meetings with that dialogue, or?
No, we do this, we've done this before as a breakfast event.
Yeah.
That
It's here in this room.
We've done it here, we've gotten one of the McShays or one of the restaurants to cater it. We started, you try to do it, I think at about 8 o'clock in the morning, get everybody out by 9:30 or 10. And basically just introduce everybody and then just kind of, in a brief way, get a sense, what are you concerned, what should the borough be doing? How would you react to this, that? It just has to be facilitated. It's not that hard to facilitate. It's worked out well. We've had different chairs of economic development facilitated, or, I've done it several times, and it's really in and out in the sense of, an hour and a half is a good time for a amount of dialogue.
Yeah.
And it's really been a positive. And I think, as we talk about, what's going to happen at the minor location where underneath, whatever we call it, Mr. Buck's property, what's going to happen, what would we like to see, what do they need feedback from us, and maybe, that dialogue will open up the next level of dialogue. The one question that will come up that I'm a little remiss on, but I need to be aware of, is the Montgomery Avenue district. And so I think we make sure they're all invited. We may want to do a subsequent, and that may be a good way to introduce the conversations we're starting to have with Lord Marion about how does that get developed. And it might have to devote a lot of time to it, but let's get that on the table, because
So are you suggesting we do one?
we do one for all business property owners and businesses in the borough. Not everybody comes, but we get 40 to 60 people.
And you were thinking we were doing this in January, I think the tax was done in the spring. I think maybe the beginning of the year.
You do it, the sooner you do it, the more response you get. The only plan is to get the invitation out properly. It doesn't take a lot to facilitate it.
So when do you think you're going to do this?
I always just say the third week of January. It's tough. That's how I think. It does take, the only problem doing it at that time frame is somebody's got to do the work, doing the invites and tracking it, whether we designate that to Ed or to Sean or a combination. But people don't need that much notice. Either they're going to come or they're not. They're not going to change their vacations and schedules for that. So it's really more about the availability of the committee members and other council members. But I would say, why don't we poll, if we want to do it, poll the other council members for maybe see what's better. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or third. I would say Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, since some retail is closed on Monday.
Do we need to put an amount on that for this budget thing, or who, how's that?
It hasn't been that expensive. I mean, you have the room. We normally, I don't know what to pay, but if you're paying $12 a head for a breakfast service and you get 60 people, $700, I think that can come out of our budget.
So we'll ask for a breakfast line.
Yeah, I wouldn't make it a budget line. I just think it's within the whole realm of what we're spending. It's not that large of a line item. Plus, we're doing.
Do you think it's too late to do it next month?
No, it's November. So.
Not Thanksgiving yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
So we just bring it up at our council meeting, and then.
Possibility, but I don't know, I have a feeling you're not gonna get as many people as you think you might.
To do what?
If you did it in December.
I wouldn't do it this summer. More because I'm concerned, the borough staff has so much to do to close out the year.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, and businesses do too.
Yeah,
If
right.
they're on.
And they're in holiday season.
Right.
Well, businesses will give you feedback from their holiday season as well.
In January, yeah, that's true.
I'm just thinking as a,
Yeah.
My experience in having surveys to business owners about how they did in the past year, they sometimes don't know until tax time.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
know, they have a sense of how their December was, but they'll not know year over year.
We're not going to get data from them. We're going to get perceptions from them.
Right.
And
Right.
historically, when you're working with retailers and small businesses, they've never done as well as they expected or envisioned, which is good because that means they're striving to have a great year. So you have to take that kind of anecdote. The only what we have done, and it's been very macro because we're not really in a position to drill down for other than overall purposes, is looked at our business privilege tax, how that's grown or not. But the problem is now with so many home offices and other non-retail, you really can't get a good statistical sense of how our business is doing. I think the best way you can do it is find a business that's been here for a minimum of 2 years, maybe 3 years, and ask 2 or 3 of them to give us a, where are you this year versus last year? Not dollar amount, but percentages.
Yeah.
So to make this
I've done that.
actually happen, does our committee need to have, does the council need to ask Sean and ICC to execute?
We can do that. I don't know. We'll ask, but I think we can just ask. This would be an economic development committee meeting, which it is. Normally, the economic development committee does sponsor it, but let's make sure that's right. We have a different manager. We have,
And you also said that, you'd like other council
I
members
do,
to
yeah.
come if they can, so I think this is,
Yeah.
it could be brought up in context of that, and we'll hear whether anybody feels like, oh, well, wait, maybe.
this is what we're planning on doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you do it from the positive foot that we're
Right.
going to do it.
Exactly.
And if there's large objections, something we're missing, or
Yeah.
concerns,
Yeah.
we figure it out.
Is there anything else?
Can I real quick ask, you had said that you, for this breakfast, you're usually not targeting, or I wasn't sure if you were targeting or not including or whatever, offices, people that it was more retail and services, but are you just not inviting them, or they're just not the main target of it, or?
It's not the main target. We're trying,
But you still invite?
no, I
No.
mean, if somebody says, oh, I've got a 12-person advertising shop in town, I'd like to come, absolutely, come on down. But
But you're not sending an invitation to those businesses?
at this point, no. Though that may be a question.
I would like us to think about whether we should or not. I mean, we might learn some things about.
The only reason I hesitate, maybe the concept is, it doesn't work with all the services. And if somebody's got more than 5 employees in town, I think there's something to be learned from what the town could do for them, if they're a sole operator of a business. If I work out in my own office, like,
I
don't think I have
see.
anything to
So it's a
add.
little hard. You're making the distinction between, are you just working out of your home, or do you actually have a business?
Well,
The
that's
size
a little
of
bit
business you're concerned
Plus,
for.
we're also trying to say, what can we do to stimulate other businesses? But I think you make a good point. We never really talk to the office businesses.
The
in town.
office businesses might be interesting because they have employees, there's employees that, they park here, they may or may not
Yeah.
park here, and we may want to retain that.
But I think there's something we need to address. If you try to fit it all in one meeting, you get no meeting.
If we just invited the people, like I'm thinking the office building, across from that PO box. That in there, there's a couple of businesses which have, and if we did that one plus the normal retail ones that we typically hit, there's like a doctor's office. in
Well,
there.
and we've always done it to the business district, so, the person that bought all, I don't know who they are, but the company that, the person that bought all those, the best little,
Yeah. The
Office.
office building in Narberth.
that would be a perfect
Yeah.
person to
Yeah,
invite,
that's interesting.
whoever they are.
Yeah.
And certainly,
Some of those things.
how are you, what are we doing right or wrong in the town, right?
Yeah.
So,
Because there are an awful lot of businesses, I'm amazed.
there are, and that's why,
There are.
if you extend this too broadly, you get a mishmash, and you really But if we focus and we put a decent invitation out, some of the 3 to 5 bullet points we want to hear, you know, how is Narberth supporting your business? How is Jeff Asay supporting your business? Jeff, do you have?
Just a quick question for you. What do you think, what were your impressions when the lady from Antioch said that the businesses needed to step up? Do you think was that a pointed comment that she knows something, or was that just a general,
No,
in Manioc, the business?
You have to remember the funding in Manioc, they're in a business district that they have, I believe.
It's a much bigger.
Don't they pay a certain,
They do, yeah.
a
That's,
certain amount of money is dedicated?
she said that's where their funding comes.
They have an assessment that comes from their business improvement district.
We're not thinking of doing anything, I'm not thinking personally.
No,
Doing anything like that, because, you know, and I think that's what she's kind of, when she makes that statement, you know, they've got funding to do a lot of these things that we're talking about.
Right.
Our funding comes both from the taxpayers and our internal budget and a little bit of the business association. She's right, it'd be great, you know, if you talk about the business association involvement, you've got probably 5 to 15 businesses that really chip in and do a lot. You've got probably 60 or 70 members, I don't know, that's not numbers, which at least pay dues and will participate in different functions. But the difference between the 5 to 15 that really put out an effort and the 15 to 60 that pay their dues, that's what she's talking about. How do you get that 5 to 15 up to 25 or 35?
My sense also, in addition to just spending money on dues, is contributing your time.
Yeah.
And doing the things that are civically minded, even just doing a planter in front of your place and maintaining it, or participating in the events and keeping your store open when you could go home on a Saturday rather than be at work.
And I think that's what she was saying.
There are many ways that they might step up, as she was
And
saying.
we have a couple of businesses like Riches that really step up. I mean,
Yeah.
they're, yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I want to say, I think the interesting thing about the funding is, not only do the businesses have an assessment, but she's also getting, the parking ticket money, the parking money, and so they're contributing to the streetscape.
Yes.
Here, that's all in the general budget, and so when it's all in
Yeah.
one pile, we have to ask economic development to bring that out, to do something in a specific area.
Yeah.
She's already saying, the money you give is gonna stay
It's earmarked.
for that area,
Yeah.
which benefits everybody, but it's kind of a different order, I guess, but it's.
They have
So
a much
they're-
larger scale, much larger budget, and what she didn't mention is that they have a very favorable situation with the city of Philadelphia that essentially gave them the use of the land for the parking long-term for many years, and they just received the benefit of all that income for 4 or 5 parking lots.
Nice.
So that's a big chunk of change that they get. Yeah,
Okay,
We're not gonna get anything like that from anybody.
no.
all right, is that it?
Just checking in on our schedule of meetings for 2017. Are we still working towards coming up with that? So you had sent an email around, and I replied back, and I was just asking.
I
If
haven't
it's
heard
not set
anything
yet.
back from Aaron, who I said it to everybody,
Yeah.
Aaron and Sean, because I want Sean to be able to come when he can ask me if it's all right. Nobody's asked.
Okay, just in time. Okay. So
So when was the targeted time?
fourth Wednesday she was.
Do it after
Do it
public
after,
works.
what time is your meeting?
Public works, I suggested 6 o'clock,
Okay, because,
and then at 7:30, 7 o'clock after, or after public works ends, so that we don't get cut short where
Right.
public works meeting more time.
well, and then building and zoning is at 8 o'clock.
So otherwise,
Yeah, so that's why I'm just like, you know, we're probably, because with this issue with public safety and property committee, public safety is at 6:30, property committee, no, 6. Property committee's at 6:30 and caucus meeting's at 7:30, so we have to stick to our half hour, per hour. And if we're gonna staff this way, which clearly is the job office, then we have to stick to that. It's a challenge, but.
that's a little more, yeah, I didn't realize that
How often is the building and zoning?
that's monthly.
It's also.
They're all.
So, I think what Walco is trying to get us to do is publish an overall
the challenges is it's going to be put on the borough calendar.
Right. Right.
And
We want to stick to it as much as we can. We're not supposed to be.
I'm not worried about trying to, I think there are gonna be times when public works goes over, and then we can try to accommodate the next meeting fit within the time. And that's, you know,
Just gonna have to know that's gonna happen.
I think the trick is on the calendar is to make sure that everything has a, please confirm on the website.
Oh, you mean in case something's changed?
Yeah,
Well,
over the course of the year, we all have personal things where the meeting may or may not be held, so.
Well, but that's, yeah, that always is gonna happen, but it's more this idea that,
But we've never published committee meetings, we've never put on a calendar in advance. We've done it on the website, and that's got flexibility. We haven't published it on the printed calendar.
well, which you're supposed to. Well, not the printed calendar necessarily, but in the paper of record.
Exactly.
And I think, I hope anyway, we've been doing that for the last number of years,
We have not.
at the beginning of the year.
Not for committee meetings.
Really? Even though you're supposed to.
You're not necessarily supposed to, it's up to your solicitor to make a determination. There is nothing in the statute that says you have to do committee meetings. This is our solicitor is recommending that you do, and the recommendation is that you follow what your solicitor recommends.
Yeah, sure.
So we're going to do it, and honestly, like, it's the ideal situation.
Yeah,
If we
it
could
is.
publish it, have a yearly schedule, and try to stick to it, that would be great.
I'm all for that because I plan then other things around that as much as I can. And if people are gonna go move the meetings around that I'm a part of, that really causes me problems. Because I probably have already said, oh, good, third Wednesday of the month, I don't have any council meetings, so I can put something in there.
I would like to try to stick to this as much as possible. If you need to go over in your meeting and there's some issue, we can add an additional item.
That's true.
We can always add a meeting, which we have to publish in the paper.
Well, no, if you convene, isn't this what we did the one where we had Monday evening and then the Friday? We just recessed the Monday evening, and you didn't have to put that in the paper. That just needs to be on the website, that the Friday morning was happening. So
we can do that. So I'm willing to try to work with this.
All right, so let's just put that in the calendar.
Okay, cool, super.
So, yes, no, I still haven't heard anything back from Aaron or anything, or Sean saying you can or can't.
Maybe they wanted to hear from Bob saying that he liked that schedule first, so that they knew that all three of us liked it.
So
before
we
they
like
tried
the
it.
schedule, that's all we can say.
Well, so you know, one of the two of you could let them know that, and maybe that will shake hands or something.
I'm gonna send it to
You get a
you.
response?
It'll all be in the
You
email.
might, you never know.
It's amazing.
Okay, so, meeting is adjourned.
Good